Welcome to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. Really excited today to introduce you to our next guest. He's a transformational branding expert, storytelling maestro, and a keynote speaker with over 20 years experience helping entrepreneurs, businesses, and CEOs craft genuine and impactful brands. Deevo, sometimes known as the brand whisperer, has a rare talent for blending personal identity with professional messaging and really helping his clients create brands that deeply connect, inspire loyalty, and leave a legacy. Now, full disclosure, this episode went a little longer than normal, but I promise you it is worth the full listen because there is gold woven throughout. So if you only have time to listen to 30 minutes now, do it, pause, and come back and check out the full episode later. You know that I am huge on authenticity, showing up and using your unique gifts in a way that serves others. But in order to have a bigger impact, people must know you exist and connect with you. And that's the power of creating a strong brand and brand storytelling to connect with the people that you're most meant to serve. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are right now, get ready. This is a fun one, and it all starts now.
I'm Kara, and welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. I believe that all of us possess unique gifts and talents that allow us to serve the world and our own growth in the highest possible way. Our lives are an expression of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And here, we will explore businesses, thought leaders, and topics designed to inspire, helping propel your own growth so you can live your best and most purposeful life. Welcome to Soul Inspiring Business.
It's been a fun conversation already. Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. We have the one, the only Deevo here with us today.
An hour later we start.
Welcome. I'm super excited. So we had like a little pre-show strategy sesh. I'm pumped for this conversation. I can't wait to share this with you all. And so Deevo is a brand storyteller. He is a personal brand strategist. He's got a podcast. He's got a mastermind. There's so many different ways that we could take this conversation today. And we met on your podcast, the Branding Laboratory podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So and it was like a 2-hour plus conversation that could have spanned more. So welcome to the show. I'm super excited that you're here.
My producer said when she was listening to the show, she's like, dude, you guys talked about literally everything. How am I supposed to get this down to an hour? I'm like, you're not. Just like put it out as 2 parts or something if you want. I don't care, but don't cut it. There was too much stuff in there.
I know. It was so good. So for our listeners, I'm going to share that episode when it goes live with you all. But also, I'm super excited you're here. So we are going to dive into lots of things. We're going to really try to make this a 45-minute conversation. If it goes longer, maybe we'll do a 2-part series. We'll see where it goes. But, where I wanted to really start for our listeners first was I do believe, and they've heard me talk about it a lot, about the power of showing up as your authentic self in your business. And that's what you help people do. You help people show up and build a personal brand, because when you do that, I feel like you just connect all the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to dive into that. First, though, we're going to start with the story of how you found the work, or how the work found you. So let's start there.
So is this just you sort of like a monologue on how I got into the business?
I just want to know, how did you even get here? Because the work you're doing is so powerful, and you've got a lot of different offshoots of it to help people and really serve people. That's, I think, I was really attracted to the fact that you are really come at the business with a servant's heart and want to create impact in the world. And those are the people that I'm always most connected to. So tell us about, again, how did you get into this work?
To be honest with you, I don't really have a really enlightening story on it. It sort of came about by accident. It was, life is a squiggly line. And I have a photography studio, which I've been doing full time since 2006. And traditionally, I just photograph people, like portraits. I do a lot of boudoir photography. I was shooting like 100 weddings a year type of thing. I have 2 teenage daughters, and one of the things that I started noticing about 10 years ago is I was missing out on most of their lives because I was shooting a lot of destination weddings, so I got to go to these really cool exotic locations and go tell people's story. And really, kind of at the center of all of my photography was always centered around telling your story. I don't do traditional photography. Like if you were to have a session with me, you'll see there's no posing typically involved in it. I just put you into these sets like theater, almost like a movie, and then I engage with you, and through sort of like provocation, I sort of move you into spaces and then just kind of tell that story through my lens. So I've always kind of been in the storytelling capacity. But anyhow, fast forward, I started realizing at some point that I was starting to get a bunch of business type gigs working for corporations and for individuals and personal brand type stuff. People weren't calling it personal brand. They were just calling, I need some lifestyle photography. And I was doing a bunch of work for social media influencers, which, by the way, are the worst people on the planet to work for. They are.
Why is that?
They are the divas of all divas. They are the devil divas.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
I know we were talking about the many ways that people pronounce Deevo's name. There are some surprising ones.
Yeah, devil divas.
Devil.
Anyhow, and one of the things I was noticing is that in the process of taking all of this photography, I also do video. That I noticed a lot of people weren't actually using their photographs, and there wasn't any purpose behind what we were photographing. They would just sort of have me come on site and do these things. And when I started to sort of inquire and dig a little deeper, I was sort of time and time again, they didn't really know what to do with the photographs. Like, we have this content, but I don't really know what to do with it. And when I sort of stepped back and started looking at the photography itself, I realized that there really wasn't like an overarching theme to it. We weren't really like telling a story. It's more of like reactive type, just sort of like candid photojournalistic stuff. So I just started sort of putting 2 and 2 together. And I came up with this idea of like managing the content for them more on the front side of it, and sort of like storyboarding it and creating this entire concept piece that we were going into the shoot with. And that, it really, not to belabor the story, but it just sort of kind of started whittling down and getting more honed in every time I did it. And then I realized what I was actually doing was branding for these people. And so I was like, why am I not really just focusing more on the strategy side plus the content side to tell people stories? And that's how I got into the space, really. And there's a bunch of other subtleties and nuances to it, but yeah, that's the long and short of it.
Well, and I think what you said really connects with us. So a lot of our listeners, solopreneurs and other real estate agents and all different types of people that have listened to the podcast. But I think what's interesting is there is this, it's become now, I'm going to do a branding shoot, like what you're talking about, right? And that's for social media because I've got to do, but I think you're right. Many times you just schedule it because that's what you were told to do. Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, well, I heard that I'm supposed to do this branding shoot, so I'm going to go, but there's absolutely zero prep. I've done it, actually. There's not a lot of prep work on the front end to say, what actually story are we trying to tell? Yeah. So, I mean, I know personally, I've been on a few branding shoots where they're like, oh yeah, bring a few outfits and we'll just kind of figure it out when we go there. And not to actually, put down those people that have helped me with that before, but there isn't a lot of strategy before going in. When you're making this really big investment of not only time, but money, I think what you hit on is so valuable for anybody that's thinking about doing that kind of photography, whether it's for your website or Instagram or all the things. Yeah. So then what does that look like? Like if you are going and you're thinking, well, what kind of story am I telling? Like, where do you start with people?
Yeah, for me, it really starts around having a strategy behind it and being able to understand what that message means. So, perception is reality, right? And so you're telling a story, but your audience, and one of the things that I found in this process, especially with early entrepreneurs, is that they have a particular perspective about their brand, their story. Like, this is the power of what I bring to the world. But if you were to interview your clients and your customers, there's a big disconnect between what they perceive you are, what you do, and sort of how you perceive yourself, right? And so it's really clear that you have an understanding of what that looks like. So I started I started creating these brand alignment, brand strategy, brand discovery decks where I would take this exhaustive interview process, and it's part laying down on my sofa for psychological therapy. It's part Enneagram, it's part archetype. It's really kind of understanding how you show up in the world and what you want your business to stand for. And when you have a clear understanding of what that is, what you actually do, what problems you solve, we've talked a couple of times about you have all these great ideas and we're entrepreneurs, like we're Swiss Army knives, and we're just like, I just want to take and just do all of it, right? And that's cool, but there has to be sort of a common message that takes all of those everythings and shares that with the audience that's supposed to be buying your product or using your service, right? And so that there's not this disconnect, this lost in translation, if you will. And so every one of my photo shoots starts with a smaller version or micro version of this discovery, just to understand how do we want to show up in this session? What's the product that we're actually creating? What's the problem we're solving potentially? And how do you want your audience who's going to see this to receive it and react emotionally? And then we set out to try to tell that story through film and photography and video. And so there's always like a storyboard that goes into it. Every photo shoot, I'm doing a photo shoot this weekend up in for the magazine. And it's a winter edition, and they really wanted something unique to stand out. And because we don't ever get snow in North Carolina, and it's now snowing, the mountain's got a boatload of snow. So the whole edition is going to center around this idea of like this snowy, blistery winter that's coming through Charlotte. And so the whole session had a storyboard. We outlined the wardrobes that the model has to bring, all the different things. And then when we show up, we have an engineered purpose of what we're setting out to accomplish. And that doesn't mean we go by the script. There's lots of deviations. As you can see, I'm a squirrel hunter. So there's always going to be like, oh yeah, there's a really cool tree. Well, let's go try that, But there is still a script. We have a purpose behind why we're showing up, and we'll do a bunch of other things, but we'll still hit that purpose. Like we'll make sure that the content matches the vibe that we're trying to create for the magazine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think that, it's interesting. I mean, again, I think one of the things that I've talked about on the podcast is that I think there's an episode about the 3 truths of building a soul inspiring business. One of the truths is that you were born with unique gifts and talents that are unique to you. And I believe that your job is to show up and use those and impact the world in a big way. But just because you were born with those strengths and you have those strengths, then you've got to figure out how do you communicate that with the world in order to bring in the right people, right? How do you see that for your own business even? Like how do you structure that or send that message out? Where do you start?
Well, it's really ironic that you asked that question, because for many years I thought that I didn't want to be the face piece, the mouthpiece of my business. I called it my studio is called Fusion Photography, for example, and most photographers call their studio their namesake, Kara Donofrio Photography type of thing, or Deevo Photography. And I didn't do that early on because I always thought that I was going to build an agency. I always thought I wanted this idea of like an office and an agency and a team and all these sorts of things. And I did that for many years, actually. And I sold that company because I just didn't want to do that anymore. I started to realize that really even though they were hiring my agency, really they were hiring me. And I was the brand. And so I made a full turn shift on that and started focusing on, I am the brand. Like no matter what it is, if I'm a small business owner and an entrepreneur, I am the brand. Kara, you are your brand. And so it's really important to understand that, and how you show up in your individual life and how you show up in your personal life. It's going to have a large part of how you show up in your professional life. And so becoming the brand and sort of understanding that you are the niche itself. It's not, it doesn't force you to fit into someone else's idea of what the business should look like, or a specific set of deliverables that you have to offer to your clients. It allows you to show up in all your glory and all of your power and say, these are the things that I do the best. These are the things that I have my gifts of. This is what I was gifted with. And so I'm now going to take all of those and share that message with a larger population who might need these services. And what happens in that process is when you become the brand, you actually live it and eat it and breathe it, you start to attract the right type of person that actually wants to have that version of you in the world as well. And that doesn't mean that you're everyone's slice of pie. I'm not everyone's slice of pie, trust me. But I am a very specific type of person's type of pie. I resonate with a very specific type of individual that does want my sort of provocative view of the world, my sort of rebellious view of the world, the things that I want to push the bubble on. And that's how I run my business. I believe that we should show up unapologetically, and it's our job, if we have a gift, to give this to people, as many as you possibly can, because in the process we create community, and we create like a tribe, and we create this sort of like population of people that are all like living, breathing the same ecosystem and sharing that with everybody, and it just compounds from there. Does that make sense?
No, I love that. And I think that you're right. I think that there's also so many people in the world. Like, so there's plenty of people. Like, if you're showing up, and you may not be, I love that. Like, you may not be everybody's slice of pie, but you're going to be someone's. And there's a lot of people out there that might like that.
Yeah.
Whatever, apple pie or whatever it is, right? What pie would you be?
Pineapple.
Pineapple.
Yeah, I just love pineapple. I don't know why. I've always loved pineapple. I think it's the best damn fruit ever. Except American pineapple sucks. Got to go outside the country to get good pineapple.
Where would you go?
Mexico has phenomenal. Italy has really good pineapple.
Really?
Yeah, any place but America. America's fruit has been like completely engineered down to like nothing. The soil sucks, has no nutrition left in it. It's been genetically modified over and over and over and bred into all the like, it's bred for mass production. It's not bred for consumption or like the natural additives that fruit actually has anymore. So you gotta leave America to get good fruit.
Yeah.
Here's another conversation we could go down.
There's another whole conversation. Yeah. But I want to.
What would your pie be?
Well, if we're talking like a fruit pie, it would be strawberries. I love strawberries. They're my favorite.
I know, but you can't get good strawberry in America anymore.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah. So I don't know where you have to go, but
anywhere but America.
Any video here. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. The islands, maybe? I don't know.
Anywhere but America. Europe has the best fruit ever. Go anywhere in Europe, you'll get amazing fruit.
Yeah. Well, another tangent for us. So I want to go back though to this idea of the brand being you.
Mm-hmm.
There is and I actually resonated with some of what you were saying about, your first business was fusion because you didn't want it to be you, because you were going to build this team and you were going to have all this. And I actually find that, to be honest, in real estate, it's kind of similar. A lot of people are like, I need to make the team name, not my name, so that I can sell the business. Or, and that happens a lot with businesses, is this idea that, well, if I'm going to sell it, if it's going to resonate, then I can't have it just be me, because at one point I don't want it to just be me. How do you respond to that? Or what do you think about that?
Well, I think when someone's buying the business, they are buying the business. But if you've done a good job setting it up, there's assets that are part of the business. So there should be other assets that if somebody, because I sold a company, they didn't necessarily, they didn't keep the name, so they just rebranded it, but they're buying the assets. So again, I'm not an expert on angel investing or any of this sort of space, but having done it twice, I've sold two businesses. Both of those businesses have been absorbed into other brands and renamed, but they kept the tools and they kept the audience. They kept my customers, they kept my customer list, they kept sort of like the SOPs and stuff that we had in place. I'm not an expert on this, but I would say I wouldn't really stress about that. I would stress on building a brand that resonates with a cool audience that has good revenue and good metrics and good ROI and KPIs and all that stuff. And if you're looking to sell that in an exit strategy, that's what they're going to be focusing on. They're going to be looking at your numbers and your data and your SOPs and like, what have you built behind the scenes? What's the inner engineering of it? And the name can be, it's like adopting a pet. Like the pet's name is Tiger, but I'm not going to keep it as Tiger. I'm going to change it to like Scooby or whatever. It's like the same thing for me.
Right. Well, and I think it's interesting too, because there is this idea. I always get questions, from real estate agents and other businesses too, but about like, this idea of, do I want my social profiles to be me? Should it be the business? Should it be, how do you kind of marry all these, because there is so much noise. So just speaking about like brand development, does it depend on the person, or do you typically say go all in on, because I do believe that building a personal brand in your name, nobody can take your name away from you,
Mhm.
right? And so building that brand, building your own customer list, and is probably one of the most valuable things that you can do. Because if TikTok, for example, was going to go away tomorrow, which, just almost happened, came back, but then you've got to build your own audience, and you build that through your name, right? I mean, I think. What do you say to that?
So the question is, if
So
I'm building an audience, should that audience be centered around my personal brand? Is that
should it be centered around your name? Should it also include your business? Like, do you have two social profiles? Do you have two different entities? How do you marry them?
I don't think one size shoe fits all situations here personally. I think
Okay.
I think it should be dealt with on a case by case basis, depending upon what your service is, what your solution is, and the market that you're living in. If you're trying to build Cara Donofrio real estate agency and you're building an entire team around this, I don't see why your real estate company shouldn't be called Cara Donofrio.
Mhm.
However, if the assets that you're building, if the business that you're building centers around maybe more ownership, for example, from team members, that you're not just the sole proprietor of the company, there are other entities that are involved in it, or maybe you have a board, or maybe you have different products that you're selling, then I think there's no problem in sort of infusing a different sort of name convention around it. I would say that would be my take on it.
Mhm.
However, if you are a smaller entity and you're still a sole proprietor, whether you have contractors or employees, and people know you for you as you being the brand, I see no problem in continuing that legacy around that namesake of Cara Donofrio. Am I saying your last name right, by the way?
It's Donofrio. But
Donofrio? Sorry.
actually, you are saying it the Italian way. It's just that my husband's family, they all changed it to the American way. So the Italian way is Donofrio, but it's Chaffin, my maiden name, but part of my last name still, and then Donofrio.
Got it. So Donofrio. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to
The
mix.
way to remember it, which is kind of funny, is my mother-in-law. She told me one time that people would always call me Donna, because when I checked into a hotel, she's like, "Oh, they get it wrong all the time. They'll just call you Donna because they think your last name's Frio, your first name's Donna, Donna Frio." And I was
Got
like,
it.
"Who would ever, think that?" But it happens all the time. So, so she was right. I guess she knew a thing or two. I love my mother-in-law.
So sorry for messing that up. I
No,
apologize
it's
for
all
that.
good. All good.
So I think we answered it. Did we not answer the
Yeah.
question, or we?
No, I think we did. And I think also what I love about what you're creating, and I'd be curious to hear like how this has all come in and how you view your own business, because right now you've got the branding laboratory where you're helping people uh, really get very clear on the strategy of who they are, how do you align that with the business, and then more importantly, how do you communicate that message out to other people,
Well, the
right?
branding laboratory is the podcast.
Oh gosh, that's right.
Yeah,
Sorry. Now you're
that's
correcting
where
me.
I met you.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah,
So the business,
Donofrio.
yeah, Donofrio. You got the podcast, and then you've got the business where you're helping people tell strategies and doing consulting work and strategy around that.
Yeah.
Then you've got the mastermind. So how did all of these things come together? How do you look
Well,
at
I figure if I just put enough bandwidth out there and just expose enough, that somebody's going to latch on at some point and like some of it. So, no, I think really all of it is sort of centered around an idea that I believe is front and center with everything we do. Is we are a community and we should be a community. And I sort of came into this when I got divorced a few years, about going on 15 years ago, that I wasn't surrounding myself with the right type of people, including my ex-wife. No offense.
It's okay. We all live and learn, and
Yeah. So, but there was sort of like, I realized that I had worked in the corporate world for many years, right, straight out of college, and I don't know if I've ever shared that story, but I just was
no.
like, what's the point of what I'm doing? I was making all this money, having all these things, and doing all these really cool stuff, but I was like, I hated my life, I hated my job, I hated everything that I was doing. Genuinely, I was like, just there was no joy in anything that I had going on, and part of that was that I realized that I wasn't surrounding myself with the right type of people that were empowering me, inspiring me, and in forcing me to become a better version of myself. And so I really set out to change my circle, from my friends to my peers to my collaborators, all those different, from my business to my wife, all those different things. And that's sort of where we are today. Fast forward 15 years. I'm trying to build an ecosystem of peers and purpose-driven leaders that I can surround myself with and piggyback on all the things they're doing to make myself sound really cool, and just really be around people that are inspiring to me. So I've hired coaches, I go to therapy on a regular basis. Just, again, I believe that we were designed to be a community. I don't believe that we were designed to sit in these silos. And so the podcast is designed for me to connect with the larger audience and share your version. You came on the show and spent 2 hours with me sharing your version of the world. And somewhere, somebody out there is going to hear what you had to say and be like, holy shit, that is one cool ass woman. And whether it's one person or 10 persons, or in your case, probably 100, somebody's going to be inspired by what you said. And in that moment of impact, whether it's through a podcast or through the mastermind or through the work that I'm doing, you change the trajectory of people's lives. And I believe that if you can surround yourself with enough people, and there's a scripture in the Bible, and I'm not biblical or anything of that nature, but I am very spiritual, sort of like when two or more people are gathered, and sort of like this idea of that when you bring two like-minded people, and I don't mean you have to agree on everything, but when you bring two aligned people together, and just in sheer conversation, you've doubled the energy vectors around yourself, right? So if you bring 3 people together and 4 people, you can do the math. It's just simple logic. So I've just really set out over the last 15 years to really explore what the universe has to offer by surrounding myself in bigger groups and larger people and going to these retreats. And what's happened is, like, my entire life has magnified in the process. I'm more purpose-driven. I'm more spiritually aligned. I better understand who I am and how I show up in the world. I have a really good group of friends. I have good collaborators. I'm on podcasts with amazing people like yourself. It's just sort of like, it's a trickle, then it becomes a flow, and then it becomes a flood. And it's just like, there's just an explosion that happens when you sort of make an intentionally driven motivation to expand yourself and to expand the people that you're around. And so, really long-winded way of saying, I just really like the power of people. I love being around people who are doing really cool shit on the planet. And I just want to share that message with other people, because if we can make a difference, like with one person, the world's a fucked up place to be, man. Like, we have to find ways that we can survive and thrive. And you can't do that alone. You just can't. Like, maybe somebody can, but I sure as hell can't. I want to be around people who make me better. And so, yeah, that's kind of like really the impetus behind all of it.
That's amazing. I just want to just hug all of that, because that was so good and such an amazing way to message, the ability to, or how community has the ability to just create amazing impact in ways that are yet unknown, right? And I actually wanted to go back to something that you said, because I actually think that some of our listeners, there may be somebody listening that's like, I'm in a situation, I'm in a job that is not fulfilling for me, and I don't know what to do. I feel like I need to do something different. I'm either in corporate or I'm in something that doesn't fill my soul and I'm stuck. So can you talk through what that transition was from going, but it's hard because let's just say, you're in a corporate job and your income and your family and everything that's around you relies on the income that's coming in from that job. How do you make the shift? Like, what did you do when you went from that corporate world into solopreneurship, when in itself can be a little lonely sometimes, but it's a big shift. And I think it's scary for people. So it prevents people from making the leap. But how did you do it?
I don't think there is one secret recipe to it, to be honest with you. I think that everybody has to really understand how they show up first and foremost and what they want out of their life. And I don't think everyone is designed to be an entrepreneur. And I'm just going to put that out there. I don't think that everybody is capable of doing that. I truly just don't. I think that becoming an entrepreneur and running a successful business takes a very special type of individual. And not everybody is cut out for that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think we need people to work in the corporations. We need people to not be entrepreneurs. But I would say, if you have taken the time to clearly understand, and I think the first thing you need to do is understand who you are. And I don't mean, to bring back the age-old philosophical question from Plato. It was like, who am I? But you really do need to sort of understand who you are and how you show up in the world. And what are your gifts? Like, what inspires you and what are your gifts? You just talked about it 15 minutes ago. Like, what are your gifts and how can you take those gifts and scale them into some sort of a idealistic model that can be shared with a larger population that will be willing to give you a resource exchange in the form of currency and help you run that business. And so I think first and foremost, you need to understand what you are, what you bring to the table, how would you do it, have a plan. You need to have some sort of strategy. And the best way to do that is to engage with your family, your close family members, talk to your peers, talk to your friends, hire a business coach, have a conversation with somebody who's sort of been in that role already and help them see who you are so they can kind of clearly help you sort of map out some values alignments. I think, there's lots of different ways you can do that, but understand what your values are and how you want to show up in the world. I do not think that you should quit your job tomorrow and start your new business. I think that you should probably test and vet, and find a way to sort of continually improve. And I did this part-time for many years. I did corporation stuff for 15, 16 years. And around the 10th year of my business in the corporation, I started realizing that this was becoming a very quickly a vapid existence for me. And I started thinking like, I'm very artistic. So I've been taking photographs since I was 12 years old. I've had a camera in my hand for that long. So I'm actually really good at it. But I wasn't doing anything with it. And I stopped painting and I stopped reading. And it was like, why have I gotten away from all the things that actually make me a better version of me? Right. And so I started picking up all those things again. First of all, I started painting again. I started writing again. I started reading again. And I started taking photographs again. And I did that. I literally would come home from my 9-to-5 job and I did a mentorship with another photographer. That's how I started. I was basically his bitch. I just literally carried his equipment around. I literally did everything for him. And that's how I got back into the world of photography. And then I started just literally whoring myself out, giving whoever wants photography, I'll just do it for you. Because I wanted to sort of see, is this something I could really do again? And I'd never really done people photography before. I just sort of done landscapes and sort of artistic type stuff. So I started photographing people. And then I got within my own corporation. I started going to my boss and I created jobs within my corporation where I could take photographs for the company. Like I literally created a job so I could get paid more money to do that. And then I got laid off. So they gave me a really huge severance check. So I was like, it was weird because when everybody got laid off, everybody just kind of went and took their money and bought stupid shit. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I put my money in the market and just let it sit there. And then they hired me back like a week later. So then I was working for them. Then I got laid off again. And I was like, dude, this cannot.
Two severance?
Yeah, this cannot persist. Like I have to have a plan B here. So that's when I decided to set out. Like I started taking all the things that I had been working on for 5 years in the photography world. And I started creating a small business. I started charging for it. And then when I got laid off again, I was like, that's it for me. And so I just literally jumped headlong into it. But all that time I was making a plan. All that time I was perfecting my craft. All that time I was getting experience and building clients and sort of putting my name out in the universe. And so I was ready to do it at that point in time. And again, that was my journey. I'm not suggesting your journey should be the same. But if I had to like write my magna opus on this, I would say, have a plan, understand who you are, start building something now, like moonlight now, like do something on the side. Make sure that it works, that you can actually build something out of this. And then when the time comes and you feel like this is something you can really jump into, then make the leap.
Yeah. So there's a lot of amazing nuggets in there. A few things I wrote down. One was not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. I agree with that. Right. It's easy to look at what you see and say, oh, wow, like, it's so easy to be successful. No, it takes a lot of hard work and it's not for everybody. I mean, not everybody could manage a million balls in the air and the stress, of it.
You only see my social media side. You don't see me curled up in the fetal position and after a bathtub crying, eating saltine crackers for 2 years. Like nobody sees that on social media.
Nobody sees that. Exactly. So I think that's a good point. But also, I think one thing that you mentioned that I love is that, again, going back to this idea that we all have these soul gifts and we all have things that light us up with joy. Like, and it may not be that you're meant to create a business around it. It may be that you're just meant to, but maybe it is. But the idea is that you start by leaning into the things that fill you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you and I had talked about on your podcast, The Artist's Way,
Mm-hmm.
and that book that was about, getting in touch with your own creativity. And it's a whole exercise where I think you journal for, what is it, 30 days? And she walks you through. Anyway, it's a really cool book if anybody's interested, because I think what it pulls out of you sometimes is things that you don't even know are within you. A lot of like I didn't used to think of myself as creative at all because I can't draw. I cannot draw a lick. Like Pictionary, my kids can draw better than me in Pictionary. They can draw a better dog. They're like, what is that you're drawing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how to draw it. Anyway, so because of that story that I told myself, I thought, well, I'm not creative at all. Well, actually, the truth is I'm incredibly creative. My mind works differently. I see like vision and business and in a and creative ways of putting people together, right? And then connect it. So it's a different way to look at creativity. So sometimes we block ourselves with our own beliefs. But I think what you said and what I took from especially your journey into where you are now is that it started by you thinking, I'm not really happy where I am right now. I know that I need some type of shift. I'm not really sure what it is. So I'm going to explore what that could look like. I've had a camera in my hand since I was 12 years old. So, hey, like maybe I'm going to get back into that. Maybe I'm going to start doing the things that light me up, that make me feel like I'm just in my genius, because everybody has a genius in them. I believe that's God-given. And so, you start small, you start leaning into those things, and then you see what has merit. Like, hey, do other people see the value in what I'm bringing to them? Can I actually make something of this? So that, a lot of times people see the business and they see the outcome like 10 to 15 years in. So they're like, oh, I want that. They want the quick fix. But it starts in the moments of reflection, the moments in, what could life look like if I wanted to see it differently? And starting there, like going to a yoga class, going to a painting class, going to whatever feels like a yes, and then feeling the pull of that. Because I do think that we're all led. I know you and I message it a little differently. I would say God is leading me. You might say the universe is leading me, and it's all whatever our own language. But if we're being led and pulled, like you have to listen to the little heart pulls. And first it starts with taking a pause to say, like, what if I'm not happy where I am, where do I want to go? What could I start doing? And taking the baby steps. And then, as you said, it starts to then get momentum. So like you take a step here, you take 5 steps, maybe it takes 2 steps behind, but then you take 10 steps forward. And so it's not a linear journey. It's a journey that's like filled with lots of amazing, beautiful turns. But if you're open, and squiggly lines and all the things, but if you're open to saying, God, universe, use me, use my gifts in a way where I can really be filled and lit up and also serve people in a powerful way, like show me what those look like. And then being open to the whispers of your heart,
That should be the name of your next book, Whispers of Your Heart.
Whispers of Your Heart. That could be it. Well, yeah, but I think that's what you beautifully told. That's what I took from your story, was the way that you gave yourself permission to lean into what your soul was trying to show you, and then not only do you get the whispers of the heart, but then learning how to say yes to them, learning how to say, because we all get these intuitive hits, like we're all the time being given opportunities. Then it's just us to use our filter and to say, what can I say yes to? And maybe it feels a little scary, but I'm going to say yes anyway. And then, do I like that? Or no, actually, maybe that isn't right. Maybe I need to fine tune it this way. Like, okay, I like doing photography for this company, but that's not totally filling me. So let me tweak it a little bit and let me move in this direction. And so it's this constant like filter as you're fine-tuning your journey.
So is there a question there, or can I confirm what you just said?
I'm just like reiterating all the amazingness that you just said.
You said it much more eloquently, especially Whispers of the Heart. I'm really like that. That's the name of your next book.
It may be. Stay tuned.
Sounds like a Paula Abdul song.
It does.
I just aged myself with that Paula Abdul reference.
You aged us both.
It's like a muscle. Everything that you just said, it sort of becomes, it's a muscle. Creativity is a muscle. And if you're not using it, think of yourself think of your body. Like if you go to the gym, you start building fitness, your muscles start to grow, you start looking better naked, all those sorts of things. And if you don't, well, the exact opposite is true. So you have to practice creativity. And I don't care what it is you do. You just have to do it. It's the only way to grow. And you're right, everybody has a creative muscle. We don't have the same creative muscles, but we do all have creativity. We've just sort of, the tap has been turned off because we're like on our phones all the time. We're not reading anymore. We're not exploring anymore. We're not traveling. We're not engaging with people anymore. We're like locked ourselves in these little silos, and we're just sort of living in this silo, and everything in this silo is designed to like keep us in the silo. It's not designed to expand us and enable us to grow and become more critical thinkers and all that sort of stuff. And if you don't use the muscle, it grows into like a morsel.
Yeah. You're so right. And I'd love to hear how do you get into that creative side of yourself? Is it meditation? Is it a specific exercise? Like if you were going to tell somebody, hey, how do you exercise that creative muscle? What does that look like?
I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Again, no two people the same. I would just want everyone to hear who's listening to your show that I don't have the secret sauce for anything. I have found some of the things that work for me, and I try to practice those and grow from them. I think for me, nurturing whatever it is that you're trying to grow in your life, the nurturing leads to the nature. And so if you can continue to nurture these things, then that becomes second nature for you, right? And so that's developing good habits, that's developing good processes, whether it's in your business, yourself, going to the gym regularly, exercising. I think for me, I try to create space for creativity in every situation. So I do journal a lot. I wouldn't say that I have like this specific structured regiment that I do, but with my phone, for example, I'll just be driving down the road and I'll have a thought about something and I'll just quickly record it into my phone. And I have like a data bank in here of all these ideas of things. And some of them are blog ideas. Some of them are newsletter ideas. Some of them are business ideas. Some of them ideas how to become a better lover, whatever. Like there's like all these little notes. And so I keep like this running journal of things that I either read or I see, or I'll see a billboard. I'm like, that's a really cool idea. I could expound upon that, or I don't agree with that sort of thing. And so I have like this space that I've created. And then when I get home, I have a journal. Like I literally write. There is something to say about physically writing stuff out. And no matter how many digital tools you have, there is an argument, a cathartic argument for taking the time to pick up a pen or a pencil and physically start writing things out. And the more you do that, the more it just becomes second nature. Again, so nurture nature idea. And then the second piece is, for me, I believe that life is an experience. Like I truly live that motto for me. And I try to do everything I possibly can. And whether that's traveling, whether that's cooking, whether that's trying new recipes, like I love to cook in the kitchen. And my friends who eat my food will joke around. They're like, there's nothing ever tastes the same. And it doesn't, because I'm always like, I'm going to try this to see how that goes. And so that doesn't mean everything is great, but like I have this perpetual curiosity to just try things that I've never done before. And, you've heard all the cliches, like do one thing every day that scares you. I don't know that I really scare myself every day, but I do try to do something every single day that I've never done before. And whether that's just going for a long walk, or I have a pool, so I started jumping in the pool every once in a while in the morning. It's now 35 degrees and it's like ridiculously cold. And I don't believe that you should do that every single morning, but I've never done it before, so let me try it. So I think you just have to embrace curiosity, create a space. And I do believe that you have to be willing to take risks. You just have to. Like, you cannot live in the same way every single day and do the same thing every single day and expect any sort of change in that, right? So take risks, accept imperfection around that. I'd also, what I said earlier, you've got to be able to surround yourself with people. You have got to find an environment where you can connect with other people and learn from them, be inspired for them. Hire a business coach, go to see a therapist, go to a networking event, just get on a podcast. Like, there's no reason why you cannot build some sort of a press kit. You may not get on a Joe Rogan show, you may not get on a Kara show, but find some place where you can just show up and talk to somebody. Like, who knows where that might go? And the more you do that, the more it just sort of starts to compound. And then the final piece, and this is something I'm really working on right now, is I'm trying to figure out how to be more joyful in my life and engaging in more playful situations, and not always just be like, I have to work, I've got to build this, just trying to find ways to be more playful. And so I think if you can take some of those things, then it probably should be a recipe for something. I don't know what, but something.
Well, I'll write down you want to hear my notes on what I wrote down from that?
I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay.
Whisper it back to me.
Whispers of the heart. So first, I love that creating space for creativity, because I think that, like we were talking about, I think
I don't even see you writing. How are you writing?
Oh, I'm just scribbling over here.
You can't even see.
Right here.
It's like you're mind melding it or something.
A whole page.
Your notes look like mine. It's just like all over the place.
I'll scribble. I'm like, what does that say? So I know sometimes I'll actually look back at my journals or writing. I'm like, what does this actually say? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the first was just creating space for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a big journaler as well, but I think that, also I actually planned this. We were talking earlier, and I'm creating a digital course and, all of this kind of fun stuff, because it just kind of came in. Like, to your point, sometimes you get this, like, whisper of the heart. You get this, you allow time and space for creativity, and then you get these drops of knowledge. And to your point, when you scribe that into your phone, or voice memo into your phone, or scribe it into your journal later on, I think that there is this idea that when you get a hit on something, it means it's already for you. Like, if it comes into your field,
it's already happened.
It's already happened. It's possible for you.
I think it's already happened.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Expand upon that.
I don't know if this is right or wrong. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm curious.
I think that we are just forms of energy. Like, if you could peel away our skin and sort of look in, I don't know, it's like a subatomic camera view, you'll see that we're just literally like flowing, moving magnetic resonance. That's really all that this is. This book is the same thing. This phone is the same thing. And however we do it, I don't really understand the science behind it, but we have sort of like we have objectified everything. Everything becomes an object to us. That's how we perceptually experience it. It has to be objectified. But at the core, it's just energy. And in that energy, everything is connected.
Yes.
Like, we're connected. Somehow or other, you and I we share space, and then we like each other, so we share that space, but we're also energetically connected. Even people that you don't like, you're still connected with them. And I think that in the process of this, like, energy vector of connectivity, that we know that there's no such thing as time, right? That's a known fact. Time does not exist. We exist in a microcosm of a creation that we just fabricated so that we could make sense of it. So time is literally just a human fabrication. It does not exist. So if time doesn't exist, then anything that you experience had to have already happened in some version of time. And because I do believe that we as energetic beings revisit this over and over, like, I think that's the purpose of being on this planet. I believe in you can call it incarnation or call it whatever you want, but I do believe that we were sent here to experience all of this, so that in the process of experiencing all of this, we can expand ourselves and expand each other. So in the process of that expansion, whether you believe in a God expansion or a universal expansion, they're really the same thing to me. If we could have thought it had to have already existed. Otherwise, we couldn't have matriculated the idea in the first place, because that original idea already existed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, I think it already, if you write it down somewhere or other, whether it's dimensionally or energetically, it already existed. And so it's your job to sort of like now flesh it out and objectify it so that you can recreate it. Like, I think that's the whole point. We're just here to recreate these experiences that we had already had on a different level, perhaps. I don't know if it's a spiritual or, I don't know. I'm not really smart enough to have this conversation with you, but That's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah. Well, and it's the creative the physical manifestation of it, right?
Yeah,
So because
yeah.
if you're getting the thought, because I do think everything, to your point, is it's created twice, once in here, right? And maybe, to your point, maybe it has been already created. And then the other is that then it's taking it into physical form. So sometimes I
That's how
actually
we
have to
interpret it.
say, yeah, that's how we interpret it. Yeah.
That's our interpretation of it.
Yes. Yes.
So somebody had an idea to create this phone, whether it was Apple or somebody else before us, and there's a large argument to be made that these things already existed in a previous civilization on this planet. That's another rabbit hole we can go down. And it was just sort of revisited back to this person because they had already experienced it, because time didn't exist. It's not linear. It's sort of like this quantum circle, basically, is how it is. And we're just like traveling in this circle. And somebody somewhere had this idea and they pulled it out of the circle, and they're like, okay, I have this idea to build this phone. And so how can I objectify this and then put this into like this linear state so we can experience it as a structured entity?
Yes. Yes. And maybe create the tweaks or the whatever it is to it via their own gifts and how they see it, right? Through their own filter. So, so I love that. And I think that your ability to get those intuitive hits and to be in tune with the things that are for you then is greater when you allow your space time for that time for those things to come in. When you allow, it's like you're stretching out the molecules a little bit, because when everything's so tightly wound into like one little, like if you're like, oh, I'm going to this meeting, this, like you're so tightly wound, you don't have space like for this drop of knowledge to come in. So it's important, I think, to your point, to create these spaces in your schedule that allow for miracles, that allow for opportunities, or what we perceive as miracles, right?
Or go to Peru and do a deep ayahuasca trek.
I actually watched something about that. I'll share it with you, where I don't know that I want to do that anymore, but that's a whole other topic.
Have you ever done this?
No.
No.
No. But I wanted to say something else on that, because the other thing you mentioned was,
you're like, let's switch the subject really quickly.
Oh, like, let's switch. No, but I don't want to.
My personal brand cannot handle that muster.
I don't want to lose this thought, because.
All right, fine. Sorry. Shut me up.
The other thing you mentioned was this idea of connections, and you and I talked on your podcast about the trees and the documentary that you told me about called Borealis.
Did you watch it?
Not yet.
Dude.
I know.
Hurry up so we can talk about it.
I know.
I need to talk about partner with this.
I know. But what I think is so incredible about, and we were talking about this magic of trees and how they're all interconnected. And there's actually this amazing imagery. If you like Google how trees communicate with each other, there's some really cool imagery on it. But there's this idea that, they're rooted, and their roots actually under the ground communicate with each other all the time. So they'll communicate danger. They'll communicate when one needs more nutrients. They'll signal to each other. And we see it in nature play out all the time. I mean, we see, the dolphins, my favorite animal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the porpoise.
Have you ever swam with dolphins?
Once.
Really?
But now I kind of feel guilty because, I don't like the fact that they're in captivity. But I actually, I did swim with them once in captivity. And then when I was younger, I used to go to the beach, and we would get these big ocean kayaks. And anytime I saw the porpoises in their glory, like moving down the beach, I would just grab my ocean kayak and run out into the water. And then I would just, kayak with them. I just love their energy. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent. But what I think is beautiful is that when we look at how nature, and you take the tree, you can't see them communicating with each other. They don't talk to each other in a traditional form like but they are talking to each other. And so there is this idea too, where we as people, to your point of community and connectedness and the power that we have when we are purposely putting out this message and energy into the world, that we'd like to connect with people and create impact, we are able to do that as well, energetically. And then we also have, and so just like the trees don't like physically talk, right? We can do that in our own sense. We can root into the ground and actually also expand into the highest part of our soul and from above. And from that place, communicate to God and the universe what we need, what we want, what we would like. And I think those are, there's ways to kind of ground into them, and there's visualizations and meditations. But I think that sometimes we limit our own power because we don't realize how immensely powerful we are. We haven't learned how to step into that place. But when you can more fully step into back to like your unique gifts, when you're leaning into the biggest part of who you are and consciously saying, God, universe, bring me the people that are most aligned, to me and that I can best serve, and lovingly remove the ones that aren't, or, one of my mantras, then we'll
Don't
start
remove
to
me.
bring in those people, right?
I don't think that's beautifully said. I don't think a lot of people understand that. I don't, again, this is just anecdotal. I would venture to guess that of the 8 billion people on the planet, there is probably only a small fraction, 1 to 2%, that really have taken the time to clearly understand this. And I'm just saying this from my own observations. I don't know that people really truly understand that we are not linear creatures, that we are so much more than that. And I don't think that a lot of people have taken the time. Buddha says when the student is ready, the message will arrive, and these people will come into it in their own time. And that doesn't make me more awakened or more enlightened than you. I just happen to have gone down a journey of introspection to understand that I am more than just this physical shell sitting in this chair right now. There's something more to this than just like this meager existence of living and dying. So I don't know a lot of people have taken the time to understand that. But you poetically whacked that and said that very beautifully. We are spiritual entities of just energy form. And sort of like, I'm assuming you and your husband have a good relationship. If you don't, sorry that if he's listened to this podcast, but you can sometimes finish each other's sentences, I'd imagine, right? You sort of know what he's thinking and vice versa. Like there's all these times and people are like, oh my God, we're like so connected. Well, you could do that with anybody. Like just, if you spend enough time around somebody, and the science will show, like, women, for example, like you align your monthly menstrual cycles if you're around women for a certain period of time, and men do the same thing. Like if you hang around with a group of people on a regular basis in a regular capacity, you all start picking up the same tics and the same subtle nuances, and you start sort of like developing habits that are like, whoa, bro did the same thing. And that isn't because it's like there's like just some freak of nature involved there. It's because we are energetically aligning ourselves like a radio frequency. We're all moving to sort of like that 95.1 FM schedule, and we're all like, everyone's like vibing and flowing. And what happens is that we live in this society where we're put into these silos. Are you frozen on me? Because you went into this like freeze state for a second.
I don't think
you're back.
So. I'm back. Okay.
Because if you want to go down a crazy rabbit hole, which I'm sure you'd love to do, you think about your upbringing and how were you educated? You were sat in a classroom for 8 hours, which is just a prison sentence. Then you were put into another classroom for another 4 years, which is just another prison sentence. And you're sat to just sit there. You're not interacting. You're not going outside. You're not learning. You're not understanding how to live a real life. And then after you graduate, you're put into a cubicle and you get to sit there for 52 years doing the exact same fucking thing. And it's like, that's not how humans were designed to live. And so in the process of that, we talked about tapping into the creative muscle. If you're not exercising your mind, if you're not learning to critically think, if you're not reading and going outside and enjoying nature and like being part of this symbiotic circle of life, if you will, and I'm not talking about Lion King with Simba, I'm talking about literally living a real life that's involved in all these different things and experiencing it, then that muscle gets shut down. And then if there's 7.5 billion people that are shut down, imagine what the collective energy is going to look like. We're all going to become these like linear funnel focused people doing nothing but working for somebody else. And like the only way to break free from that is to start like questioning everything, like stepping outside and like you just have to experience stuff. So yeah, sorry, I went down on a little rabbit hole. Slow down, but I'm back.
No, I love it. No, and I think that actually, I mean, that really is, to your point, I think a lot of people haven't gone down that path or don't have that sense yet. But I think some of it is that there just hasn't been that much exposure to it, right?
No.
And so, and I actually think, I really do believe this, and I think that's one of the reasons that, like, I love talking to you and the soul inspiring business and how I kind of see it going into the future too, is that I do think that the world is actually expanding in its consciousness. And I think that more and more people are like, I think this conversation, just take this conversation alone, if it had been 10 years ago, I don't think it would be received in the same way.
Mm,
So I think that what is exciting to me is that I do think that the world is shifting. The energy of the world is actually rising
mm,
in its frequency on an energetic world level. Now, not everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of still crazy shit out there in the world.
mm,
Um, but I think that that's even makes it more important for us to really connect with God, universe, and
mm,
share this message and help others lift,
mm.
because I do think there is a shift. And I think that it is resonating with people in a way, and in a where they can actually receive it better than they would have just a few years ago.
100%. 100%. There is a shift. There are more and more people that are waking up to this message and realizing that there is something else out there. But and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. All the more reason that we should continue perpetuating this. I don't say that we need to force our opinions upon people, but I do think that we need to continue surrounding ourselves with people that are waking up, that are sort of visually value aligned in this space. Because again, you put more of those people together, the larger that amplification is going to be. It's sort of like if you're a rock artist and you get your first gig and you show up and it's really just a small bar and there's like 10 people in there. Like your message, your song, your creative genius just hit 10 people, right? But it still hit 10 people. And then you sort of developed a following. You get invited back and those 10 people are like, dude, you got to come see this Cara girl. Her voice is like an angel. 25 people show up. You get to sing again. You just impacted 25 people. Maybe 2 of them didn't like you and they thought you were bollocks, but 23 thought you were amazing. So then you get invited back, and then again, you keep growing that audience, right? The more you grow that audience, the more that audience compounds. And so at some point, you're going to be playing before a stadium of 75,000 people, and you're like, oh, and then you're touching all these lives. And so like that's the reason why you need to magnify this sort of stuff, because the more people's lives that you touch with this show or your podcast or whatever you're doing, again, you just keep building. It's just like you just keep building and matriculating and building and matriculating. And then that's the power of surrounding yourself with cool people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also going back to even your work, the magic of having somebody that can help you tell the story in an impactful way, because you can do all that, but if it's not packaged well,
I
it's
like
not
how you
going
got
to.
that back. Thank you.
Yeah, see how I did that?
I love that.
But if it's not packaged well, then it's not going to hit people the right way, right? Like even down to the colors of something, like how it all kind of goes together. It has to be a congruent message. And
Can I give you a perfect example of that? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can I give you So I have a neighbor here who lives here in my new neighborhood, or where I've lived here for a year, and he moved in shortly after I did. And they're from Russia. And she is apparently like this huge celebrity in Russia for doing tattoo eyebrows, like micro needling. Is that what it's called?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but they haven't been able to build their presence here. So for over a year, they've just sort of been spinning their wheels. And I was sitting in the driveway one day after my dog finished humping their dog, and we were just sort of talking. And I was like, bro, let me just give you a coaching call. Like, let me just sit down and sort of maybe I can help you out with this. So anyway, it turns out that they don't have a marketing problem. They have a branding problem. Nobody understands. First of all, she can't speak English. Very broken. She doesn't really know how to connect with an American audience. They're doing Russian things for an American audience. This is a completely different audience, completely different process. We Americans have a completely different idea of what this should look like. And over there in Russia, while she was a big deal, that's literally lost in translation over here. So we sat down, and for over a period of like 4 hours, we literally start drawing out this messaging mechanism, these levers that they could use for an American audience. And the dude was just like, holy shit, how did I never think about this? And sometimes we just can't read our own label. So it's really important that we find cool people to surround ourselves with that can read our label, because we're kind of stuck in our own jar. And so just in like a few hours of a conversation, we literally completely shifted the trajectory trajectory of his business. So, and we created a plan and a strategy so they can now start targeting an American audience with the right type of messaging that would resonate with an American audience that she wants to sell her services to. And that's what branding does for you. And whether you work with me or you work with anybody else, it's really important and behooves you to figure out, how do you want to show up in the world? What is the solution? And how can you deliver that to the right audience using the right language? And it really just boils down to messaging when it comes down to it. It's not your logo. Like, I think people always think branding is like, oh, I have this cool website and I really wear cool puffy shirts and things like that, so that's my brand. That's not your brand, man. Your brand is the things that you say, but it's the audience's perception of what you say, and that's what really matters. And so you've got to figure out, how do you reconnect that disconnect?
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is, and you used words as an example too. So like, one just silly example is, so in my brand, because I'm kind of I believe in making dreams come true for people. And there's a lot of alchemy in it. And that's just like who I am in the world. So for me, I can use words like miraculous and, you know, magic and transformation. And that's because it's like who I am. That wouldn't be the right word choice, or it would be a disconnect for potentially somebody else that didn't resonate with that same brand or had a different gift that they were sharing with the world, right? So it's all the nuanced things, and I think it's so powerful and important. So I want people to you're doing such cool things. So you're not only helping people through your business, you've got an amazing podcast called The Branding Laboratory. You've got a mastermind that is called Impact Mastermind. I just, like, quick plug, it's an incredible mastermind group that I went to my first one just last week. We did this incredible values exercise, and I connected with all these really cool people, to your point of like connecting just incredible entrepreneurs and the power of that. And some of them we've spun off in different conversations. So tell us the many ways that people can learn more about you and some of the things that you have to share that can help people in this journey.
Thank you. I appreciate the plug, and I'm glad you joined. It was really really cool to have you there, and I hope you'll come back again and again. I'm trying to grow that, so the more people, the merrier. Again, there's a very specific type of person we're looking for, and that is part of this. And I think it's not exclusively an entrepreneur, but it's sort of this purpose-driven leader that kind of understands that, you know. And I don't like the idea of like servant leadership. I feel like it's overused. I sort of really kind of resonate with the idea of like collaborative leadership and the ability to understand that like it's a community that makes the world go around. And so it's people like that. So the mastermind, just really long and short of it, if you're looking for an opportunity to meet other cool people like Kara, or hopefully me, just join it. And what it is 90 minutes. Where it's a structured, soft structure of interactivity, and you get to go into breakout rooms with individuals and sort of get to know them and fit and make connections. And like, where else would you be able to meet people in different parts of the world if you didn't have an opportunity? And so I'm just trying to create. I believe my job on this planet is as a portal, as a vessel to sort of connect people. And like, again, the messaging, the branding, the photography, whatever it is, there's always one central piece of that is sort of like expansion of who we are and the gifts we bring, and being able to share that with another audience. So whether that's through connecting you with people like Nicole, or coming to the mastermind, I believe that's how the world should work, is that we should just keep connecting everybody, and connecting the dots brings it all together, right? So that's the mastermind. It meets third Wednesday of every month. You can find all this information on my Instagram or my website, thebrandstoryteller.com. What else? The podcast is Brand Laboratory. It's really so that I can interview more people like Kara. She's got a unique perspective of the world. You have a cool business that you're running. You are making the world a better place to live. I want to know how you do that. And that's what we do in the laboratory. We just sort of break down, how are you showing up? What are your gifts? How are you sharing those gifts with a larger population? And how can people connect with you? And then the final piece is my company, The Brand Storyteller. The long and short of it is I create opportunities for you to crystallize and clarify your message, so that when you take that to the marketing level, you sort of have a brand that actually connects with the people that you truly want to connect with, as opposed to just sort of throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall and hoping that one of them sticks. So those are my three ways.
Yeah, I love that.
And more to come.
Did you mention already there was something that you had created for like some type of assessment for that you're about to launch? I thought you said.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This is not the end all. This should not eliminate all of your own personal research, but I firmly believe that we should be interviewing people that we're about to partner or collaborate with as well. So just like they're interviewing us to hire us for our services, I believe it behooves us to interview them as well, just so that we can make sure that we're a good fit. Because I've learned the hard way that if you hire the wrong type of person, if you show up to serve the wrong type of person, it's just a recipe for disaster, and there's no longevity and no sustainability to that. So I have developed a tool, and you're going to test it for me. But I'm going to be launching it this week, and it's sort of like the gateway to sort of see on the first level if this is the right person to work with. And so it's a workbook that when you're interviewing your client, your ideal client to work with, you can sort of get some vetting tools to understand if this would be a good fit for you or not. And then some introspective tools to take that information and then sort of analyze a little bit more before you just jump headlong into that process.
Yeah. And I heard this quote kind of to pointedly talk about that assessment tool that you have, that you serve everyone. It's something like, if you serve everyone, you serve no one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so this idea that, there are just people you're going to naturally connect with, and,
Mm-hmm.
and more than likely, it's also going to be, if they are the right person, you're right for them, they're right for you. It's also going to be just a nicer experience. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've, hired somebody, or we've taken on a client because we're like, oh, well, it doesn't really feel right, but, I need the money, or I need to, whatever it is. And then those people just drain the living life out of you, and you're like, why the heck did I not listen to my intuition? So I think, that tool could be really useful for that, just kind of giving a quick gut check. You've got the gut check, and then actually an analysis to see, am I right on this?
Yeah, you actually create a physical scorecard. So I through the questions that you ask, you're scoring this individual to sort of see where they fall in your litmus test of values. And again, if you can line up values with the person you're hiring, or the person you're marrying, or the person you're dating, that's sort of like the first tier towards having some longevity and sustainability. Because if your values are misaligned, while you may be passionate at first, they're going to quickly start to glare as gaps and be like, you don't know if I can do it. That's not so cute anymore. It's like, I don't know about that. So yeah,
totally. Well, I love that. You've given us all the ways to get in touch with you. We're going to include it all in the show notes. And I'm shocked that, the thing is, we could have gone on for hours and hours, but I was trying to condense our time into like 45 minutes. It's like an hour 10, which I think is a real win for us, because we could go so many different ways. But I just always enjoy talking to you. I think that you're such a gift, and I love, just to your point, connecting people, right? And like, that's the point of the world, is to, connect people and I think the gift of this podcast, the unexpected gift, when I put it together, I didn't realize that, maybe you did, because you said one of the reasons is you get to connect with cool people. When I put it together, I was like, I just want to get this message out. The lucky accident to it is that I've just made incredible connections with just incredible people. You are absolutely one of them. And I feel like, when we were on your show, it was like we went to so many different places, and it's so awesome that, you got to be on here and people get to know you and know all the awesome things about you. So thank you so much for sharing your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. The honor is mine. I really mean that.
Loved being here with you today, and would love to connect with you more over on Instagram. My handle is linked to the show notes, or you can just type in @Chaffin Donofrio. And I have something special for you as a free gift, my dynamic life journal. This special book has the power to really help you live a soul-inspired life. Go to freegiftfromkara.com. Easy to remember, freegiftfromkara.com. Until next time, beautiful people, sending all my love.